My name is Ryan Whitmore. I'm 32 years old. At my older brother's engagement party, my father stood in front of 180 guests and declared that the future of Whitmore Capital was secure. The Lakeshore Union Club overlooks Lake Michigan. All glass and dark wood. Chandeliers suspended above polished marble floors that reflect everything light. Posture. Hierarchy. The kind of room built for generational confidence. My father lifted his champagne flute with the ease of a man who has never doubted succession. When Nathan was born, he said, voice measured, carrying without effort. I knew he understood what this family built. Legacy isn't taught. It's instinct. And my son has it. Applause rolled through the ballroom in controlled waves. Investors. Board members. Old Chicago capital that values continuity above almost everything. Nathan stood beside Caroline. Relaxed in a tailored navy suit. One hand resting lightly at her back. He had been prepared for rooms like this since prep school. Yale. Internships arranged through quiet phone calls. A vice presidency at 26 with his name etched into frosted glass. He's the next chapter. My father continued. The future of Whitmore Capital. More applause. I was seated at table 16. Rear left quadrant. Partially obscured by a column. 10 feet from the service corridor. No one mentioned the seating chart beforehand. When the photographer called for immediate family, my mother stepped forward without hesitation. My father joined her. Nathan and Caroline moved into frame. The photographer glanced around once. That's everyone, my mother smiled. Yes. That's the family. Flash. I didn't move. You don't interrupt a performance to argue casting. They thought I did small-scale consulting. That I was still finding direction. They had no idea who I was. Across the ballroom, Caroline wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at me. And in less than 10 minutes, this room was going to discover something my family had ignored for 6 years. The Whitmore family doesn't announce hierarchy. It's embedded. In architecture. In tone. In who speaks first at dinner and who clears plates when conversation turns strategic. Our house in Winnetka sits behind iron gates that open before a driver fully stops. Red brick colonial. 8 bedrooms. Limestone steps worn down by decades of fundraisers and political dinners. The kind of property that doesn't shout wealth. It assumes it. Whitmore Capital manages approximately $412 million in assets. Lower middle market buyouts. Industrial roll-ups. Conservative leverage structures. My father founded the firm in 1987 with 2 partners and a $14 million first fund. He likes to say he built it from nothing. That isn't true. He inherited relationships. Board seats. Banking access. Country club introductions that smooth capital conversations before numbers are ever discussed. Nathan was integrated into that ecosystem early. Prep school in Lake Forest. Yale legacy admission. Economics degree with summers spent inside Whitmore Capital shadowing senior partners. By 26, he had a corner office and a title vice president of investor relations. $305,000 base salary. Bonus tied to capital inflow. His job is alignment. Dinners with pension trustees. Golf with family offices. Maintaining continuity optics. My father calls him stability. At investor events he says, Nathan understands legacy. He says it with pride. My childhood bedroom was converted into a temperature-controlled wine cellar in 2020. No confrontation. No announcement. Just adjustment. I went to Penn. Earned my MBA at Wharton. Graduated top of my class. No legacy call. No placement favor. When I joined Morgan Stanley Real Estate Investing, my father said, real estate is cyclical. Don't mistake motion for progress. When I worked 80-hour weeks underwriting assets no one else wanted to touch, he said, you don't have to prove yourself. When I told them at Thanksgiving 2018 that I was forming my own firm, carving knife paused mid-slice. That's ambitious. He said, infrastructure takes decades. It's not something you experiment with. Then he turned to Nathan. Tell them about the institutional account. Conversation pivoted in under a minute. That was the night I stopped offering updates. Not out of anger. Out of pattern recognition. In our family, validation flowed toward resemblance. Nathan mirrored my father's temperament. His cadence. His certainty. He fit the existing silhouette. I didn't reject the silhouette. I simply didn't match it. They assumed if what I was building mattered, it would intersect with their world eventually. They never considered the possibility that it already had. And that assumption was about to fracture in public. I didn't build North Bridge to compete with my father. Competition implies acknowledgement. I built it because I understood something: early control compounds faster than approval. After Wharton, I joined Morgan Stanley Real Estate Investing. Analyst. Joshua Armayuan. 000 base salary. Manhattan rent would have absorbed half of it. So I moved to Queens. 3 roommates. Commute by subway. Packed lunches in glass containers while associates expensed sushi. They thought I was conservative. I was accumulating optionality. 4 years in. I was an associate underwriting middle market urban repositionings, obsolete, industrial, distressed mixed use, undervalued secondary corridors, assets ignored by larger funds chasing trophy towers. I saved aggressively. Bonuses untouched. Lifestyle static. By 26. I had just under 4 million liquid. I resigned in January 2019. My managing director called it premature. You're walking away from platform. He said. Platform was inherited access. I wanted ownership. Northbridge Capital launched from a 600 square foot office near LaSalle. Rent $800 per month. No receptionist. No marketing team. Just spreadsheets. Debt models. And disciplined underwriting. Our first acquisition, a shuttered cold storage facility in Pilsen. Purchase price $21 million. Capital stack, $13 million debt. $8 million. Equity. Half mine. Half from 3 former colleagues, willing to back my conviction. We repositioned it into a mixed-use flex industrial hub. 12-month lease-up. Stabilized yield above projection. Sold at a 2. DOSC's multiple. Track record begins with proof. 2019, 3 additional acquisitions. Small. Precise. Profitable. 2020 markets froze. COVID pressure compressed valuations. Institutional capital retreated. We leaned forward. 4 distressed assets purchased at 28% below replacement cost. While competitors paused. We structured downside protection longer debt maturities. Conservative leverage. Tenor diversification. By 2022. Those assets were up 47% in appraised value. Institutional capital started calling. Teachers' retirement funds. Regional endowments. Healthcare pension systems. Investors who evaluate discipline. Not pedigree. In 2021, Northbridge raised $210 million in committed capital for Fund I. No family office introductions. No legacy anchor. Pure underwriting performance. By 202418 stabilized assets. 6 developments in progress. $611 million in assets under management. 31 employees. 0 capital impairment. My parents believed I was advising small developers on zoning strategy. Nathan once told someone I was consulting in secondary markets. I didn't correct him. If they had asked one specific question, the illusion would have collapsed. They never did. Because in their structure, relevance flowed upward, not sideways. And in less than an hour, that structural assumption was about to detonate in front of 180 witnesses. I left my apartment at 440 p.m. West Loop skyline fading in the rearview mirror as I drove north toward Winnetka. The lake was flat that evening. Steel gray. Wind low. The kind of weather that makes everything feel controlled. I reviewed Monday's board deck at a red light. $82 million equity on the line. Institutional investors don't tolerate emotional instability. I compartmentalize well. The Union Club opened its doors at 630. Membership initiation north of $90. Ling ling ling. Annual dues steep enough to filter discomfort. Bronze plaques lining the entry hall, commemorating donors who never worry about being forgotten. Cocktail hour overlooked the water. Heat lamps spaced evenly. Champagne poured with measured precision. Past appetizers plated like art but designed to disappear in 2 bites. I spotted my mother immediately. Ivory silk. Diamond studs. Posture calibrated for visibility. She air-kissed Mrs. Hollingsworth from the philanthropic board. Voice warm but not loud enough to reveal strain. My father stood near the bar. Navy suit. Gold cufflinks engraved with the Whitmore crest. Scotch in hand. Laughing with a managing director from a competing fund. Nathan was positioned where he belonged, center of orbit. Relaxed. Confident. Caroline at his side. She saw me first. Noticed before my family did. Ryan. My mother said when I approached. As if surprised by punctuality. Photos at 645. Don't disappear. Disappear. The word fit. Inside the ballroom. The seating chart was displayed on a backlit easel. 18 tables. 10 seats each. Table 1. Immediate family and core capital relationships. Tables 2, 6 institutional investors. Table 7, 10 social board. Table C's distant cousins. Peripheral acquaintances. The architectural blind spot created by a marble column. That was mine. No one explained it. I sat. Made small talk about interest rates and private school tuition. Answered questions about projects with controlled vagueness. At Shapta Doazech. The photographer called for family. Whitmore family. Please. My parents stood immediately. Nathan and Caroline joined them. They arranged themselves in instinctive formation centered. Symmetrical. The photographer scanned once. Anyone else, my mother didn't hesitate. That's everyone. Flash. Applause from nearby tables. I didn't react. Emotion is leverage if you reveal it too early. Dinner progressed. File. Napa cabernet. Conversations about allocation strategy and political positioning. Had absences prezicha. The lights dimmed. My father rose. And the room prepared to affirm continuity. I remained seated at table 16. Exactly where I had been placed. My father lifted his glass at 8:17 p.m. The room quieted in under 3 seconds. When Nathan was born, he began. Voice steady. Practiced. I knew he would carry this family forward. Legacy isn't something you inherit passively. It's something you're built for. Murmurs of approval. He spoke about discipline. About stewardship. About Whitmore Capital, entering its second generation. Nathan understands what we've built. He's my pride. The future of this firm. Applause. Glasses raised. Then my mother stood. Unscheduled. If we'd only had one child. She said. Smiling toward table 1. I always said I hoped it would be Nathan. There it was. Not subtle. Not ambiguous. A clean erasure delivered with confidence. Across the room. I saw Caroline's expression change. Not shock. Recognition. She wasn't looking at my parents anymore. She was looking at me. The photographer called for a toast photo. The Whitmores reassembled under chandelier light. Flash. Flash. As the applause faded, Caroline crossed the room. Purposeful. Can I ask you something, she said quietly near the terrace doors. Sir. Her eyes narrowed slightly. We've met before. Haven't we? I don't think so. Yes. She insisted. Conference room. Downtown. February. I held her gaze. Full name, she asked. Ryan Whitmore. She froze. Whitmore. What firm? I didn't answer. She pulled out her phone. Thumb moved quickly. Ryan Whitmore, Private Equity, Chicago. Search. Her screen lit up. LinkedIn first. Ryan Whitmore, founder and managing partner, North Bridge Capital. She clicked. Company website loaded. AUM $612 million. Assets across Chicago, Boston, Denver. Institutional LPs listed. Her breathing changed. You're that? She whispered. Yes. She scrolled further. Pitchbook profile. Real Estate Capital weekly feature. You reviewed our co-invest deck. She said. You asked about basis sensitivity and tenant rollover risk. I did. Her face drained of color. Nathan told me you did zoning advisory work. I'm aware. She turned slightly. Scanning the ballroom. Does your father know? No. She didn't hesitate. She walked directly to Mrs. Hollingsworth. Do you know who Ryan is? She asked. Of course. Doug's younger son. Caroline turned the phone toward her. Mrs. Hollingsworth adjusted her glasses. Read. Paused. Oh. That single syllable carried weight. Her husband leaned in. Looked at the screen. Pulled out his own phone. Google search. Within 60 seconds. Table 15 was lit by blue screens. Then, table 14. Then table 13. Whispers moved faster than music. 600 million self-raised. Doug didn't know Richard Lawson. Managing director at BlackRock Real Assets. Stood from table 3 and approached my father. I watched him lean in. Watched my father's smile stall mid-expression. Watched his champagne glass lower slowly. Phone out. Search. Thumb typing deliberately. Ryan Whitmore. He stared at the screen longer than Caroline had. His jaw tightened. My mother leaned toward him. What is it? He handed her the phone. She read. Her face didn't collapse. It calcified. Across the ballroom. 180 people were no longer applauding legacy. They were recalibrating power. And for the first time in 32 years. I wasn't invisible. My father didn't move for several seconds. He just stared at the screen. The ballroom noise thinned into something sharper. Forks paused midair. Conversations clipped short. The low hum of collective curiosity, replacing celebration. Richard Lawson was still speaking. Voice low but firm. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. My father looked up. Scanned the room. Found me. Not as a background detail. As a variable. He walked toward me. Not rushed. Not calm. Controlled tension in every step. My mother followed half a pace behind. Posture rigid. Smile. Gone. 40 people were openly watching now. Another 50 pretending not to. Ryan. My father said quietly when he reached the bar. What is this? I kept my tone level. It's Northbridge Capital. His jaw flexed. You never told us. I did. He blinked once. When Thanksgiving. Launsenling Yishiba. I showed you the first acquisition memo. My mother cut in. You said you were forming a boutique advisory group. I said I was raising a fund. That's not how I remember it. Of course it wasn't. Memory bends around convenience. Behind them, I could see phones still raised discreetly. Screens glowing. $612 million ohm. Institutional LPs. Track record. Nathan approached. Confusion written plainly across his face. What's happening? He asked. Caroline held up her phone. Your brother runs a $600 million private equity firm. Silence. Nathan laughed once. Short. Reflexive. No. He consults. I held his eyes. I don't. He looked down at the screen. Read. Color drained. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. The whispers grew louder now. He beat Whitmore Capital in AUM. Self-made. Doug had no idea. My father straightened slightly. Voice tightening. You embarrassed us. I sat at table C's. I said evenly. You did the rest. My mother leaned closer. Voice a sharp whisper. This was deliberate. No. This was timing. You erased me publicly. I declined to hide privately. Nathan looked between us. Unsettled. You could have told me. He said. When was the last time you asked? He had no answer. The photographer stood awkwardly near the dance floor. Camera lowered. The jazz quartet resumed playing. Softer this time. The narrative had shifted. Not because I attacked. Because I existed. And now the room knew it. My mother was the first to say it. We're not doing this here. Her hand closed around my sleeve. Not violently. But firmly enough to signal urgency. We moved into a side sitting room off the main ballroom. French doors shut behind us. Muting the music to a dull vibration. Antique chairs. Neutral artwork. A room designed for discretion. 5 people. My father stood near the fireplace. Nathan stayed by the door. Caroline remained. Silent but present. My mother turned toward me. How long? She demanded. 6 years. And you never thought to inform us? I did. Multiple times. My father exhaled slowly. You never said it was this scale. I said I was raising institutional capital. You said real estate. Yes. That's not the same. It is when you listen. Silence stretched. Controlled. Measured. You embarrassed me in front of my peers. My father said. No. I replied. Your peers discovered something you didn't. He flinched slightly at that. You think this is some kind of victory? My mother asked. It's data. My father sat down. Explain it. He said finally. So I did. In 2019, I launched Northbridge Capital with $2.4 million of my own capital. First acquisition $21 million industrial repositioning in Pilsen. Exited at 2x equity. No theatrics. Just numbers. Launsenning Arscher. During COVID. We acquired 4 distressed assets at 28% below replacement cost. Structured conservative leverage. Stabilized in under 24 months. My father's eyes shifted. He understood numbers. Launsenling Arscher Yi. Raised $210 million in committed capital from teachers' retirement funds. Healthcare pensions. University endowments. Nathan blinked. Institutional, he asked. Yes. 2024 $611 million assets under management. 18 stabilized assets. 6 active developments. 0 capital impairment. I paused. No family money. That one landed. My mother folded her arms. And why hide it? I stopped offering information when it stopped being received. That's dramatic. It's efficient. Nathan looked unsettled. I didn't know. He said quietly. When was the last time you asked me about work? He didn't answer. Caroline finally spoke. With respect. She said evenly. Northbridge's underwriting discipline is stronger than most firms our size. I reviewed their Boston deal. It's exceptional. My father looked at her sharply. You've seen their models, yes. And their institutional quality. The room went still. This wasn't sibling rivalry. It was performance validation. My father's voice lowered. What do you want? I considered the question. I wanted to be seen 6 years ago. I said. Tonight just exposed that you weren't looking. My mother's tone hardened. So this is punishment? No. It feels like it. That's because you're measuring reputation. I held my father's gaze. Your firm manages $412 million. Mine manages $611. No arrogance. Just comparison. I wasn't competing. I added. You just assumed I wasn't building. The air shifted again. Not explosive. Final. For the first time, no one in that room could reduce me. And that was the only point that mattered. No one spoke for several seconds. The silence wasn't dramatic. It was recalibration. My father remained seated. Elbows on knees. Eyes unfocused. But destabilized. My mother's posture was rigid. Calculating damage rather than feeling it. Nathan looked smaller than he had on the ballroom stage. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I have a board meeting in 12 hours. I said evenly. We're closing an $82 million equity commitment. My mother scoffed lightly. Always business. Yes. Because business had been consistent. My father stood. We can fix this. No. I said calmly. You can acknowledge it. That's different. He opened his mouth again. Stopped. He wasn't used to lacking leverage. Nathan stepped forward slightly. Ryan, keep doing the work. I said. Not unkindly. Then I turned toward the door. My mother's voice followed me. So, that's it, you're just walking out. I paused with my hand on the handle. I've been walking alone for 6 years. I replied. Tonight you just noticed. I opened the door. The ballroom noise washed back in music. Laughter. The brittle edge of contained gossip. Heads turned as I crossed the floor. No one stopped me. No one confronted me. Visibility doesn't require volume. Outside. The lake wind cut sharper than before. I walked to my car without hesitation. When I started the engine, my hands were steady. I didn't win anything tonight. I didn't lose anything either. I built something you never measured. I said quietly to the empty cabin. And I did it without needing you to compete. Then I drove back toward the city. Alone. But not invisible. My alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. No hesitation. Shower. Charcoal suit. White shirt. Navy tie. Same watch I bought after our first institutional close. Not sentimental. Symbolic. I walked to the office instead of driving. Cold morning air along the river. Chicago wakes early. But quietly. No applause. No chandeliers. North Bridge occupies the 18th floor of a glass building on LaSalle. No inherited art. No portraits of previous generations. Just conference rooms. Whiteboards. Capital allocation. By Shadam Pietnashta. My team was assembled. Emma Patel. CFO. Daniel Ruiz. Head of acquisitions. 2 analysts already running sensitivity tables. You good? Emma asked. I'm good. That was enough. At 8:00 sharp. The LPs arrived. Midwestern Teachers Retirement. Great Lakes Healthcare Pension Fund. A private university endowment with conservative exposure limits. They don't care about engagement parties. They care about downside protection. Slide 1 214 West Fulton repositioning. Slide 2 capital stack. Slide 3 debt structure. Slide 4 tenant rollover mitigation. $198 million total capitalization. $82 million equity required. North Bridge committing $48 million. LP co-investment $34 million. I moved through the deck without notes. Robert Kessler from Teachers Retirement asked about NOI concentration. We secured 2 backup LOIs. I said. Investment grade tenants. 8% higher rental basis. Signed, October 23 and November 2. He nodded. Dr. Alvarez from the University Endowment asked about rate hedging. Fixed senior debt. Floating exposure capped. No covenant pressure through 2028. No stumbles. No emotion. Just execution. At Noah Trazit Shiopt. The LPs stepped outside to confer. Emma leaned back slightly. Clean. She said. I nodded. At Noah Patrazet Shiunu. They returned. Kessler spoke for the group. Underwriting is disciplined. Risk mitigation is appropriate. We're comfortable proceeding. Unanimous approval. $82 million, equity commitment confirmed. Closing target December 22. We shook hands. Professional. Respectful. You've built a strong platform. Kessler added. Yes. I said. They left. The room exhaled. 36 hours earlier. I had been excluded from a family photo. Now institutional capital had validated my judgment with 8 figures. No one clapped. No one toasted legacy. They simply trusted me. And trust from people who evaluate risk for a living carries more weight than applause from people protecting a narrative. I didn't need my family to see me. The market already had. By Sunday morning, the narrative had already left the ballroom. Winnetka doesn't need press. It runs on text threads. Country club brunch. Church pew whispers. Board group chats lighting up before noon. Did you hear about Ryan? Doug didn't know 600 million. Self-raised. How do you miss that? Reputation doesn't collapse loudly. It erodes in private conversations. My parents skipped church that Sunday. My mother posted nothing. By 17 propkatania. My father emailed. Subject: we need to discuss this immediately. Ryan. Your behavior last night was inappropriate and damaging. You allowed a professional detail to become a public spectacle at your brother's engagement celebration. This could have been handled privately. You embarrassed this family. Call me today. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just accusation framed as authority. I read it once. Then again. Then closed it. At Patradoy P.M. Another email. You deliberately concealed material information. That omission reflects poorly on all of us. Material information. As if my career required disclosure like a regulatory filing. At Chinchzechapir. My mother left a voicemail. You could have told us. You humiliated your father in front of his peers. Humiliation is exposure without preparation. Truth without curation. Monday morning. After the board meeting approval. I drafted my response. Subject: we need to discuss Dad. I did not humiliate you. I sat at table 16 while you publicly erased me. You did not know about North Bridge because you did not ask. I will resume contact under the following conditions: a written acknowledgement to Saturday's guests correcting the narrative about my professional standing. A commitment to 6 months of family therapy with a licensed third-party mediator. A clear boundary that my work will not be diminished, reframed, or excluded from future family representation. Until those conditions are met, please direct communication regarding estate or trust matters through my attorney. Ryan. I sent it at 6:04 m. No anger in the language. Just terms. At Opto Azet Shidoy P.M. My father responded. This is outrageous. You are attempting to dictate conditions to your parents. If you believe inheritance is irrelevant, you may find that assumption tested. There it was. Leverage. Money is compliance. I forwarded the email chain to my attorney. Margaret Klein. Estate and Governance Specialist. $975 per hour. Efficient. Her reply to them went out the next morning. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore has designated my office for all future communications regarding legal or estate matters. Kindly direct correspondence accordingly. Direct. Clinical. Power is not volume. It's control of channels. My parents attempted 3 more emails that week. All rerouted. They wanted reaction. I gave structure. The gossip in Winnetka intensified for a few days. Then it moved on. Markets don't obsess. They reallocate attention. And without access to me, my parents lost the only leverage they still believed they had. Money. Because the only thing more destabilizing than public exposure is realizing your financial control no longer applies. Nathan didn't call the next day. He sent a message instead. Not long. Not defensive. Ryan. I've been replaying Saturday. Not just the speech. The years before it. I told Caroline you did advisory work because that's what I assumed. I never checked. I never asked follow-ups. I let the convenient version stand. That's on me. I started therapy this week. Not because Caroline pushed. Because I realized I've been standing inside something I didn't build and mistaking proximity for confidence. You built yours. I don't expect you to respond. I just needed to say it. Nathan. I read it twice. Closed the phone. No reply. 3 days later. A handwritten letter arrived at the office. My assistant left it on my desk without comment. Nathan's handwriting hadn't changed since high school. Angular. Deliberate. He wrote about Thanksgiving 2018. About how I'd tried to explain my first acquisition. How Dad had skimmed the memo. How Mom pivoted conversation. How he stayed silent. I told myself neutrality kept peace. He wrote. But neutrality inside favoritism is participation. That line didn't sound coached. It sounded uncomfortable. 2 weeks passed before I agreed to meet him. Coffee in the Loop. Public. Neutral ground. He arrived early. No jacket. No rehearsed confidence. We ordered black coffee. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he did. I didn't realize how much I benefited from not noticing you. That's how systems work. I said. I don't want to keep being that guy. What guy? The one who stands next to Dad and absorbs credit by default. That landed cleaner than I expected. I'm not interested in revisiting childhood. I said. If we meet, we talk about real things. Work, he asked. Work. Discipline. Accountability. He nodded. I read your Boston underwriting memo. He said. Your basis control assumption was conservative. Smart. That wasn't surface level. You're asking actual questions. I replied. I should have been years ago. Silence again. Not hostile. Just unfamiliar. He leaned back slightly. I'm proud of you. He said. This time it wasn't reactive. It wasn't compensating for exposure. It was measured. I studied him. Keep doing the work. I said. I will. As we stood, he didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't ask to reset the past. He asked if we could do this again. Monthly. I said. Consistency matters more than apology. He nodded. Growth isn't loud. It's repetition. And for the first time, I saw him trying to build something that didn't rely on inheritance. Not reconciliation. Movement. February closed clean. We finalized the Fulton repositioning 2 days ahead of schedule. Locked senior debt before volatility ticked upward. Construction contingency came in 3% under budget. Execution isn't cinematic. It's incremental precision. March. We secured an off-market redevelopment in Boston's Seaport District. Purchase price $164 million. Underwritten IRR 18. 7% base case. Conservative leverage. No aggressive bridge exposure. The seller had been fatigued by entitlement delays. Larger funds hesitated. We didn't. April. A $108 million adaptive reuse in Denver's River North Corridor. Former logistics facility converted into mixed-use residential and flex office. Structured downside first. Upside second. In 4 months. North Bridge added $462 million in acquisitions. Assets under management crossed $703 million. Headcount expanded from 31 to 43. No press tour. No legacy dinners. Just underwriting calls and capital allocation meetings. Real Estate Capital Review ran a feature. North Bridge Capital has emerged as one of the Midwest's most disciplined middle-market private equity platforms. Founder Ryan Whitmore scaled institutional credibility without family capital or inherited anchor commitments. I archived the article. Didn't forward it. Institutional validation doesn't require circulation. In May, BlackRock Real Assets committed $52 million to Fund 3 as a strategic LP relationship. Not seed money. Performance capital. Caroline called after the committee vote. I advocated for it. She said. Because your underwriting discipline outperforms peers. Not because of Nathan. I know. I replied. It mattered that she clarified it. Nathan texted later that week. Read your Denver model. Why did you cap rent growth at 2.5% when market comps are trending at 3.2%? Conservatism compounds. I responded. He replied with a simple makes sense. Back at the office. Emma updated the dashboard. 703 millions. 18 stabilized assets. 7 active developments. 0 capital impairment. Fund 3 was oversubscribed before first close. Institutional investors don't invest in narratives. They invest in track records. My parents remained silent. No congratulations. No correction. No therapy commitment. Their attorney sent a carefully worded message acknowledging communication gaps without accepting responsibility. I archived that too. Silence stopped feeling like rejection. It started feeling irrelevant. Because North Bridge no longer intersected with Whitmore Capital's shadow. We weren't adjacent. We were parallel. And parallel lines don't compete. They expand independently. Nathan's wedding was scheduled for mid-June. Same venue. Lakeshore Union Club. Full circle. He called instead of texting. I'm not asking you to fix anything. He said. I'd just like you there. For me. I didn't answer immediately. Presence is leverage if misused. I'll attend the ceremony. I said finally. Cocktail hour. I won't stay for the reception. That's enough. He replied. I made the decision deliberately. In therapy. Doctor. Patel asked one question. What are you walking into visibility? I said. And what are you walking out with? My boundaries intact. I RSVP'd +1. Her name was Claire Bennett. Architect. We met at an urban redevelopment conference in April. No inherited capital. No fascination with pedigree. She asked sharper questions about material sourcing than most LPs ask about leverage. She knew the history. Didn't try to soften it. The ceremony was understated. Lake light reflecting through the ballroom windows. Nathan looked steadier than he had in November. Less performative. More grounded. Caroline caught my eye before walking down the aisle. A small nod. Mutual recognition. My parents were composed. Measured. Publicly warm. My father extended his hand when I approached. Ryan. Dad. No apology. No revisionist narrative. Just acknowledgement of presence. My mother kissed my cheek lightly. You look well. I am. During cocktail hour. Several guests approached me. Heard Fun 3 is oversubscribed. Boston Close was disciplined. No one pretended not to know this time. No one asked what I consulted. I stood beside Claire. Introduced her without explanation. I didn't sit at the head table. I didn't wait to be placed. At Ops Doi P.M. I left. Nathan walked me to the entrance. Thank you for coming. He said. Keep doing the work. I replied. I will. Driving back toward the city didn't feel like escape. It felt like choice. I hadn't returned to be validated. I returned because I no longer needed validation. And that distinction changes everything. People ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Anger requires sustained attachment. It assumes you're still trying to convert someone. I stopped trying. For years. I believed visibility was something granted. That if I built enough, scaled enough, performed at a high enough level, eventually they would look up and recalibrate. Here's what I learned. Some people don't ignore you because you failed. They ignore you because acknowledging you would require them to update a story they've already invested in. And most people protect narrative before truth. My parents built their lives around continuity. Predictable succession. The comfort of resemblance. A son who mirrored the architecture of what already existed. I didn't mirror it. So I built outside of it. Not to defeat them. Not to embarrass them. To be independent of them. There's a difference. Revenge reacts. Freedom operates without reference. When the ballroom discovered North Bridge, the power shift didn't happen because I attacked. It happened because I didn't need to. I wasn't seeking applause. I was allocating capital. I wasn't competing with Whitmore Capital. I was compounding something separate. You can grieve the family you hoped for without shrinking inside the one you have. You can set boundaries without theatrics. You can walk away from inheritance and still build generational wealth. You can let people misunderstand you and keep executing anyway. Their blindness was never my limitation. It was theirs. For 32 years. I waited to be acknowledged. For 6. I built without it. The second strategy produced better returns. If you've ever had to choose between staying small to preserve comfort or standing alone to protect your self-respect, you already understand the cost. The real question isn't whether it hurts. It's whether the version of you that survives is stronger. I chose self-respect. That's not revenge. That's freedom. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own worth? What did you decide, and would you make the same choice again?